What's up guys, my name is Ace, and one of the big marketing statements so far with Modern Warfare 2 coming this year is that it's going to usher in a new era of Call of Duty. And what I gather from that is we should be expecting some major big picture changes to how they're going to be approaching Call of Duty this year, compared to the three most recent Call of Duty games that I would lump into the same era of Call of Duty, because they share a lot of characteristics and progression, and they all integrated within the same battle royale, which is Warzone. So in today's video, I wanted to take a look back over this era of Call of Duty, from Modern Warfare to Vanguard, and I wanted to take the time today to talk about the good as well as the bad things that I feel came with this era of Call of Duty. Some of the things I'd love to see carry forward, and some of the things I hope we lose moving forward into the next era. Now with this list, I really tried to make it so I'm not being really nitpicky on individual Call of Duty games. I'm going to be focusing on elements that show up in either all three of these Call of Duty games, or at the very least two of them, since Cold War in many ways was very different gameplay-wise. But I just wanted to point out, I'm not going to get super nitpicky and talk about elements that only appeared in one of these three games. I'm focusing on the era as a whole. And let's start it off with some positivity. Let's go over the good things that I feel came in with this era of COD. And the first thing I've got on my list here is the Gunsmith. While I do feel the Gunsmith hasn't necessarily reached its peak, I feel like there is still some room for improvement, and it definitely could be improved over time. I really like the idea of the Gunsmith, and I think it was a great innovation for the franchise, and I'd love to see them continue iterating on this in the future. Now, not all gunsmiths are created equal. I do think Vanguard's was a little bit of a step back compared to Modern Warfare's. I don't feel like you should be able to choose any 10 attachments you want on your gun at any given time. That gets a little overkill in my mind. And additionally, I do miss some of the elements of the pick 10 style system from the past, where you could have a little bit more freedom with your perk selection and you could make key trade-offs on your class setup. So I'm in no way saying the Gunsmith system is flawless from this era, but I think it was a great step in the right direction, and I like the introduction of that, so I'm putting that in the good category. Next up, I can't make this video without mentioning the massive engine improvements that we saw with Modern Warfare, and that carried over to Vanguard as well. Cold War is a bit of an outlier here. I do feel that's due to the really rushed development cycle that they had, where they had to step in and take over. But I'm mainly talking about the huge engine improvements they made for Modern Warfare and Vanguard, and Call of Duty has never looked better than in those games. So it's absolutely worth mentioning that at least visually, and also when it comes to audio fidelity, they've taken a big leap forward with this era of COD. Now, another great feature that they finally brought into the console side of Call of Duty within this era of COD is an FOV slider. Unfortunately, that never made it into Modern Warfare 2019 or Warzone, but it does apply to at least two of the Call of Duty games in this era, Cold War as well as Vanguard, and I think this was a long time coming, and I'm so happy that they finally brought this to the franchise for console players. Next up, something that I love that they've done with this era of Call of Duty is they finally implemented a completely fair and balanced method of earning every single brand new gun that is added to the game, without spending a single penny post-launch, as well as not having to gamble at all in order to potentially get your guns like we had to in the past. All brand new guns are either earned fairly early on in the free tiers of the Battle Pass, or when it comes to mid-season guns, or if you missed a previous season, they can be unlocked through a very easy challenge that anybody is capable of achieving, as long as they're willing to put the 15 game time in. Now, while I might not like those individual challenges and the lack of engagement that they bring, I do like the fact that every time a brand new weapon is added to the game, nobody has to gamble for it, nobody has to spend a penny on it, and everybody has a reasonable shot at unlocking it. And going off of that, another thing that I do like about this era of Call of Duty is post-launch maps are now included for everybody that owns the game. There's no more DLC packs, there's no more season passes required, and while I personally didn't mind spending the extra money to get that content, and in some ways I feel like that content was maybe a bit more robust and there was a bit more effort put into it because you were paying for it, I personally love the fact that we no longer split the player base up due to DLC maps. Every single player that's playing the game has access to all of the same maps, and therefore the player base is all together in the same player pool. You don't have multiple different player pools that have different combinations of map packs, and they can only play with other people that have that combination of map packs as well. Moving on to the next thing that I like that they brought in with this era of COD, this is the ability to edit your classes in the middle of a match. Initially, I was a bit skeptical about this. I was worried you'd see way too many AFK people constantly like adjusting their class setups in the middle of a match, and that would slow things down and it would just get annoying. But over time, I've really noticed that that's not generally an issue, and I've really grown to like this feature, and I hope it sticks around going forward. After that, something that didn't appear with Modern Warfare 2019 but did appear in Cold War and Vanguard, I really like the fact that they show advanced stats in the Gunsmith, so you can see actual data and you can get a much better indication of how that gun is going to perform and how various attachments are affecting that gun compared to those stat bars, which were often very misleading and in some cases totally backward compared to how the gun would actually perform. And with that, that's going to wrap it up for the good side of things on this list. Now let's shift into the things that I'm not particularly happy with, and I hope a lot of these things on this list either don't appear going forward, or at the very least I'm hoping to see a significant rework to them if possible. And let's just get the elephant out of the room right at the beginning here. This will be no surprise to any of you. This is the skill-based, or more accurately, engagement-optimized matchmaking system they introduced with Modern Warfare 2019. Now, I'm not saying Call of Duty didn't have some form of skill-based matchmaking before Modern Warfare 2019, but it was clearly a different system compared to what we started seeing when Modern Warfare launched, and that did appear to carry through to Cold War as well as Vanguard. Now, I'm not going to get too deep into this since I've covered this so many times in the past, but basically I'll just say I feel like this matchmaking system felt overly manipulative, for many people overly reactive, where they'd see ridiculously massive swings from one end of the spectrum to the other. And with it being hidden in the background, it really took away a lot of that sense of improvement and that drive to really want to improve at the game. On top of this, through the skill-based matchmaking studies that we've done over the years, we've seen plenty of evidence that ping is not necessarily king anymore, and your connection experience may be sacrificed in order to get you into a better quote-unquote skill match, and that should never be the case, at least in public matches. Maybe in a ranked playlist, not in public matches where you can't even see your rank in the first place. So while I do understand some need for a skill-based matchmaking system to protect certain players and to hook new players into the game, I am hoping we see a pretty significant rework to how they handle this compared to how they've handled it in this era. And going off of that, I can't mention that without also mentioning disbanding lobbies. Now, at this point, I still expect disbanding lobbies will likely carry forward to Modern Warfare 2. I'm really hoping this isn't the case. I feel it ripped so much of the heart and soul out of Call of Duty, and it significantly reduced my playtime with Call of Duty throughout this era. So even though I don't think it's going anywhere in the super near future, I want to keep expressing the fact that I feel like this was a terrible decision for the Call of Duty franchise. But moving on to the next thing on my list that I really didn't like about this era of Call of Duty, this is the fact that we simply haven't had a traditional score streak system, and instead we've reverted to what I consider to be the inferior kill streak system, or in the case of Cold War, their weird experimental score streak system that I thought was even worse than kill streaks. But I just don't get it. I strongly feel the traditional like Black Ops 2 style score streak system is objectively superior, at least in objective game modes for Call of Duty, because at least in my eyes, it was the best streak system for accurately rewarding players based on their contribution to the team in objective game modes. The players that received the most reward were the players that were able to play the objective effectively while also staying alive. And those in combination are both extremely important in a game that has a streak system, because the more you're dying, the more you're feeding to the other team, and the less you're playing the objective, the less you should be rewarded for things. In my preferred game mode, for instance, in Domination, I feel a kill while capturing the B flag should be worth a lot more than a guy that's sitting in some random weird corner of the map that has no objective significance picking off a kill there. Those two kills are in no way equal when it comes to your contribution toward the team, and the traditional score streak system would reward players appropriately. And when you reward people appropriately, I find this leads to much better engagement with the objectives. You tend to see a lot more people focused on objective play, and in doing so, people tend to be a bit more aggressive. Things flow a whole lot better because people are trying to get up to the objective because that's how they get their individual rewards. And I just feel Call of Duty is so much better off with score streaks, and I've been missing that over the past 3 years. There are so many more situations where you see people completely avoiding the objective, and you can't even blame them because there's no individual reward attached to that, and who cares about winning in a public match of Call of Duty? Not a whole lot of people, but people do care about their own individual rewards. So if you incentivize objective play through individual rewards, you tend to get a lot more people engaging in that objective. Next up on my list of bad with this era of Call of Duty, the spawns. And I'm gonna give Cold War a break here. I feel like Cold War had much more traditional Call of Duty spawns, and while they weren't flawless on every map and in every situation, and of course you would run into some bad spawns, on average, the general logic behind the spawns was way better in Cold War compared to both Vanguard as well as Modern Warfare. And I just hope we don't see whatever spawn logic they've used in those games ever return to Call of Duty. Next, let's talk a little bit about long-term progression and the apparent loss of long-term progression with this era of Call of Duty. And this is something I have been talking about a little bit recently, but since the launch of Modern Warfare 2019, they have had a seasonal leveling system on top of a Battle Pass system. And with this, after every season, your level gets reset. Like the level that is displayed next to your name, and therefore the level that actually matters, that will get reset every single season. And for many players, myself included, this completely eliminated any desire to care about my level. For this entire era of Call of Duty, the past 3 years, player level and player XP has meant literally nothing to me, and I really miss the days where I was constantly progressing toward that long-term goal. I was constantly improving my player level and my prestige throughout the entire life cycle of the game. Double XP meant something to me. I cared about what level I was. I never felt as though I was just wasting my time by watching a number tick up only to watch that number get reset the next time a season launches. I personally really miss that, and on top of that, I miss a lot of the traditional prestige system as well, where once you maxed out and unlocked everything, you could choose to prestige, which sets you back to level 1, but you do enter that next prestige or tier of progression, so you're still gaining that long-term progression. Gives you an unlock token so you can carry one item with you going forward, so if you have a favorite gun, you can keep that unlocked forever, or favorite perk or equipment, whatever it might be. I really miss the variety that brought throughout the entire life cycle of the game. With that system, you didn't always have everything available to you at all times. And every time you prestige, you had to essentially start from scratch, work your way up, and unlock some of your favorite items again as you went through the progression. And I felt that kept things really fresh, and I also found that you would just see a lot more variety in what other players were using as well, which leads to a much more enjoyable experience that doesn't get stale as fast. So that right there is an area that I feel was a big step back for this era of Call of Duty. Additionally, something that I feel has been getting worse and worse is it seems like they keep trying to hide metrics from players. In the past, we used to have really robust leaderboards and lobby leaderboards and combat records, and the scoreboard in the game while you were playing the game would show more data than it does today. And it seems like they're trying to protect players from the truth because they don't want players' feelings to be hurt. And that's yet another thing that I feel was a step backward with this era of Call of Duty. Unfortunately, I don't really see this changing much going forward, but I am going to express it anyway. This has harmed my enjoyment of the game, at least to some degree. After that one, let's talk about the slow weapon level progression that they introduced with this era of Call of Duty. In the past, taking a gun from level 0 up to the maximum level, it took a little bit of grinding and commitment to do that, but not nearly as much as it has over the past 3 years of Call of Duty. And it seems like it's just been getting worse and worse. Like Modern Warfare's was pretty slow, but I guess it was somewhat reasonable. Cold War felt noticeably slower than that, and then Vanguard was way slower than that. They have since improved it a little bit, but it's still quite slow, and I find that to be very frustrating. I feel like that's one area where that should be happening a lot faster because there is a big discrepancy between a player that doesn't have a gun leveled up versus somebody that does have it max level, and I feel that gap shouldn't be so daunting to close. I'm all for a long grind in other areas that don't directly affect your ability to compete with other players that have already leveled up. But in the case of weapons, I just feel like you should be able to get to that max level on a weapon way faster than we've been able to for the past 3 years of CoD. And with that, I feel like that's a good place to wrap this video up. I'm sure there's a bunch of other little things I could easily bring to this list, but these are the main points that I wanted to focus on looking back over this era of Call of Duty. Overall, I do feel like there have been a good handful of innovations and advancements forward for the Call of Duty franchise over this time, But unfortunately, I also feel like we took a lot of steps back in some key areas, and I hope that they've learned from a lot of these lessons going forward into this next era of CoD. Now, of course, all of this is just my opinion, and this is where I want to hear from you guys in the comment section below. What are the good as well as the bad things that you've noticed that have been introduced since Modern Warfare 2019? Just let me know all of those thoughts down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.